Hey everyone, welcome to the podcast Between the Mics with Chris and Alicia. And today we actually have a mic with us. Mike Farber. Did I say the last name?
Starting us off with a dad joke.
Oh, I know. I am. I'm super excited to have Mike here today from the GreenStory. And he is going to help us geek out on marketing, what it's like to be sustainable and green, how do brands actually make that a part of their story. And without further ado, Mike, why don't you take over?
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me here today. Super excited to talk about all things sustainable, climate, marketing, storytelling.
Yeah.
We're at a moment for a lot of things, including climate. So this kind of work is really important. I'm excited to have a conversation about it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to dig into it because this is something that Chris and I kind of pivoted in our business in the last year to say, what are we doing? What do we like to actually do? Who do we like to work with? And we had to kind of strip down everything, go back to basics of, we love environmental, personally.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to figure out how to do a homestead. I'm always trying to figure out how to make my house more sustainable. Chris is like a plant dad and has a shit ton of plants everywhere.
Nuts.
Yeah.
I am Groot.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Every time we talk, she's like, there's another plant. And it's like, better oxygen in the house.
It
That's
is.
what I always say.
And so we started getting hooked on this. There are amazing brands doing some amazing things that obviously making money is important for a business in order to stay in business.
Sure.
But the majority of these emerging brands are doing something bigger than the bottom line, whether it's environmental or purpose driven or sustainable, all of that. And those are what we gravitated towards.
Yeah.
And that's how we got connected, was just trying to understand this world that has always existed, but I feel like never had a spotlight until now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, purpose matters a lot, right? Just as humans. And one of the things that is so gratifying to hear you talk about your new commitment to this area is that it's helping with the sense of purpose as well, right?
Right.
Correct.
Of course you want to make money. Of course you want to grow your business. Of course you want to be able to pay the mortgage and put the kids through college and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But why not do it in a way where you're making impact and a positive impact for something that's really important?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Especially when you're, I don't want to say almost doing it naturally. It's kind of nice when you just, it's just something you normally do, and it's just making that little bit of an impact. I guess you're only one person, but if you can help kind of make that needle move just the slightest bit,
right?
Makes you feel better.
Well, we started planting trees because we were working with a business coach at the time.
Yep.
And they had said, you have to celebrate your wins. It could be anything. You guys can go out to eat. You guys can buy a bottle of wine, just celebrate your wins.
Sure.
And it was the springtime. And I was like, I love trees. I want to buy a tree.
Yeah.
And that one decision sparked the creative idea of Chris, every time we work with a client or win a project, we're going to plant a tree, not a little seedling in the Amazon that hopefully they actually ended up planting, but one in our community, our yard, our town, our schools. And that's kind of how we came into it, but we never talked about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. We do so many things that we're quiet about.
Yeah.
And it's really eye-opening when it's you know what? People want to hear this kind of stuff.
Totally.
Yeah.
So
well, you have your heads down building a business.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the sort of joy that you're taking with regard to thinking about sustainability is something that's happening at a much larger level from a consumer marketplace.
Correct.
Which is a business opportunity.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And there are lots of people who in their individual lives are planting their trees and that's a piece of it.
Right.
But I think one thing sort of to maybe go up to a higher level conversation around environmental stuff is that consumer is just one piece of this. And there are these amazing people and companies that are doing things with regards to the environment. But in order to make really, really big impact, you also need the business piece. You need the policy piece. You need all these things to really drive that forward.
Yep.
And there's a lot of ways where the consumers can help. But one of the fundamental ways that can happen is through demand.
Okay.
By buying sustainable products, by creating markets, by making bigger companies realize that there is real profit in doing these sustainable things. And then the flywheel of growth happens, right? And that's a way to make a nice impact.
So how do you go about working with a brand or company? They find you. what happens? How do you kind of help them tell that story? Or do they even know that, just like when we plant a tree, we didn't even know that was a story, right? Yeah. Like that's just, we're just planting trees. So how do you help a company realize what they're doing is part of this or not?
Yeah. So many times a company, or I'll give me 2 seconds on GreenStory.
Please. Give context.
Absolutely.
So GreenStory, I've got a business partner, Megan Mayu Bergman, and what we do is we work with companies, organizations, nonprofits that really have sustainability and sort of doing good for the climate at the front of what they do. It's really the thing that they care most about. And many times what happens is they have that feeling, they don't know how to express those feelings. And they might do like what a lot of, say you're a startup. Super geeky, really smart, deep in the science, using words that even I don't understand, right? That's just like a mess, right? So we, in that situation, are helping them simplify what they're talking about, focusing more on benefits, why it matters, differentiating what it is that they do. And our services are very much around helping them craft those narratives, craft those stories, put that all together in an impactful way.
Sure.
And we find that's where a lot of our work winds up happening, because these organizations and companies have climate front and center of what they do. They know it's there.
It's there.
Right. Yeah. And that's another really important point. I know you and I have talked about greenwashing before.
Yes.
And that's a thing. That's really a thing. And that's something that we will steer away from. We are not going to work with a company or org that basically is doing green because they think it's going to help them make more money, and it's not really part of who they are.
Right.
So how do you identify a company like that?
Yeah, it's tricky, right?
Because sometimes you walk the walk, but it's hard to kind of tell if they're just fake walking the walk, I guess.
Yeah. Well, there's pieces of it, right? Yeah. So I've had the privilege to be involved in this kind of work for a long time. So I can feel it pretty quickly. Like in a conversation, you can talk to somebody and you can start to figure out.
It's a green sense.
Yeah.
Another dad joke.
There you go. It's not fire. but yeah, it's like you can sense it.
Yeah.
But then, another thing that you can do at a more sort of practical level is you can dig into their company or organization a little bit. Look at how they talk about themselves. Ask for past investor decks.
Okay.
Look at their website. Look at their social. And then if they're a consumer company or somebody that's got a product that they're putting out into the marketplace, look at their supply chain.
Yeah.
I got you.
Right? That's when that stuff starts to become really, really obvious.
Yeah.
Really, really quickly.
Wow. So have you ever had to turn down a project because of the greenwashing? Or it just wasn't...
It wasn't the real deal, right?
Yeah.
So not with GreenStory, but in my previous ventures where I worked with a couple, I started to build a couple larger sort of public relations firms.
Okay.
Definitely that was the case.
Okay.
Because there is this understanding of public relations, which is super powerful.
Right.
As a way to project an image. And that is part of what PR is, but part of what I think real PR about is authentically talking about people, right?
100%.
And authenticity is another one of those loaded words that we could talk about forever.
I know.
But in this context, there are companies that will come and say, hey, we want to try and do this thing green. And then you start peeling back the layers and you realize it's not really there.
Yeah.
In many ways, the masters of this are big oil companies, right? Where they talk about the money that they're putting into sort of green startups.
Yeah,
they're going to do green startups, and they throw like a little bit of money towards those companies, which is a lot of money for the little company. Like we're talking like tens of millions of dollars for them. It's like literally a drop in the bucket, or there's a dad joke here, right? A drop in the barrel.
Yeah, a little drop of oil.
Exactly. It's nothing, but then it gives them some cover.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a tricky thing.
One of my first crisis comm classes, this is what got me hooked on marketing and PR, it was about the oil spill. I think it was the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Sure. And the PR team said, we need the president cleaning one of the ducks, cleaning the oil off of it, right? Or paint, wherever it was. It was an animal who's cleaning the oil off of it. And you saw the back end of it of like, they just handed him the animal, he cleaned it, and then he like left. Like it was just such like a smoke and mirrors show. And I was hooked. Though honestly, I was like hooked on like understanding that, and then understanding like how they really do help or don't help the actual causes of their own brand, or that ripple effect.
Sure.
So so companies that come to you, where are they mainly, like what's their industry? So we talk a lot about like environmental sustainability, but like that's a big thing too, right? So kind of where do you find your sweet spot?
Yeah, all over.
Okay.
So I have this thesis that every company can become a climate or sustainability.
That was my next question.
Yeah, they really can.
Yeah,
because I'm a market forces person, and market forces are changing so that climate-facing sustainable companies are going to be in every industry. In fact, they already are.
Yeah.
And in many cases, the product, and this is really important because this is in many ways what matters most, the product is better.
Yes.
Right? So EVs are having a really bad moment right now because of policy and government pressures. Yeah. But fundamentally, it's a better product. It's faster. It's cheaper, not to buy, but to maintain. If the right kind of car, it's sexier. It's awesome. Right? And eventually, it's going to become the dominant kind of product. Right. So that's an example of, one very high profile industry where it's happening, but it's also happening in industries that you may not think about, like banking. Right. Banking is a place where consumers can make a really big impact, and in many ways maybe making a negative impact and not even realize it. And what I mean by that is,
please elaborate.
So we all have checking and savings accounts. Right? It doesn't matter how much money you have a checking or savings account. Right? Basically, what you're doing is you're giving the bank your money for them to then reinvest to make money for themselves.
Okay.
Correct. It is super important to understand what your bank is doing with your money to make money for themselves. So the big banks, Bank of America, Citibank, they are making loans to Shell, to Exxon, to drill.
Yeah, I got
That's your money. That's your money. That is going to fund that.
So how do you find that out?
Yeah, never even.
Because you could take that a step further into just even your investment accounts. You give your money to the financial advisor, and I know of financial companies that they only invest your money into like Christian organizations or green organizations, but like take that a step further. Half the time, at least I give my money to the financial planner, they give me a book of companies I've never heard of, but are going to make me money. How do you as a consumer
it's hard.
Be smarter in that? Because I didn't honestly even think of that.
It's hard. So let's separate them. Let's come back to the bank.
Okay.
Because the bank is actually something you can control.
Okay.
Right. So it is well documented that the vast majority of banks do this with some of their money, your money. There are now banks, this is coming back to the conversation we have, where every company can become a climate company.
Yes.
So I have, I'm what's called an incorporator with a bank up in New Hampshire. It's called Walden Mutual.
Okay.
Walden Mutual is this amazing new bank. It's about 3 years old, and it's FDIC insured. So your money is completely safe, like it would be at B of A. And what they do with their money, your money, is they make loans to local agriculture, food, farms.
That is
to help them build. So you know that if you have $10,000 in your checking account or your savings account, that's what they're doing with the money. So that is actually a pretty easy way to do it. The 401k mutual, that's a much messier. I mean, I'll be upfront. That's a much messier situation because even investments that you would think would be completely sustainable, some people will say, well, we're not going to put it in fossil fuels. And that's great. That's a start. Absolutely. But then other companies may be doing things you don't like either. And I'm a fan of not trying to just drive yourself crazy with this stuff.
Right. Because there's like a rabbit hole you can just really keep going of like, how far do we go?
In your portfolios are, there are tons of companies, right? So if you take the time to go into each one of them, you go crazy.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
Interesting.
So bank-wise, how does a consumer find that? Like if they go to their bank website, is that readily available, or they have to actually talk to their bank?
What do you think?
Oh, I think I'm going to have to dig.
Yeah, let's say major digging.
Yeah. So
that's a problem too. It's like, who are they going to talk to? Is it going to be the tellers and whatnot? And I'm sure they have no idea where that stuff's getting invested in either. I could be completely wrong, but I'm guessing that's a level or two above them.
So Walden Mutual is the one I know. I know that there are other banks in that model, maybe not what's called the mutual bank model, but have made the commitment they're not going to use your money to fund fossil fuel projects. And maybe in the show notes we'll put a couple of those in there. But I hate to be a negative guy because I'm not. You should assume if you work with a big bank, they are using your money for that. That's what they do. Because they're trying to maximize profit. And that's a way for them to maximize profit.
So going back to your original, if any company can become more green, is looking at your supply chain. If you're selling a product,
absolutely,
your money, your banking decisions. What else? Like we're a remote business, we're a service-based business. We don't really use paper.
So that actually leads me to a point that at what point in time are you considered green? So for example, like when we first started out, like we went paperless, right? So does that mean we're a green company now, or is it just like another tick in the box? Like at what point in time do you consider a company actually green?
It's an interesting question because I don't know if I would answer it in the way that like a company should call itself green. It's show don't tell. Right. So what is it about the values of the company? What is it about the way the company's made up? How do they act? So that's a really important step. Right. And that's something that should be celebrated. Right. So it's just like, is it part of, particularly for like a services company, is it part of sort of your decision making as you do things? Like before there was before we came on, you got cups of water and we have these. These are little steps, little things, but it's sort of like part of the DNA of the way y'all think, which is really, really important.
Understood.
We this year we started doing Eco Bingo, and we partnered with a bunch of different brands, and it was really fun because you had to create different milestones, different squares that everyone could participate. Reusable bottle being one of them. And as I'm looking around my house and I'm like, well, we have, cloth napkins, or I took Amazon boxes and glued like extra paper that I had on it. Those, going back to your thing of like, it's just something that it's a mind shift of like just how you think, right? When we first got rid of paper products in our house, we still have toilet paper, but when we got rid of paper products, like
thank you,
exactly. But like we got rid of paper towels and napkin products, and we went all just like cloth, or even my Swiffer, I got felt. Like those switches the first time is kind of like rocks your boat because you don't throw it away, or like it's just a mind shift. But once you get used to it, it's like, how did we ever go through a roll of paper towels, a week on a spill when I could have just like
wiped it up that way.
I know, it's just fascinating.
Habits are hard to break. Right. But one of the wonderful things about humans is we're super adaptable.
Absolutely.
So if you can get yourself to start breaking some of those habits, it's great. But I want to reemphasize the point I made a little bit earlier on the macro side, which is these personal actions are really wonderful and important. And they don't make the impact that big companies would want. And in fact, from a comms perspective, here we can go into like history of greenwashing and communications. 20, 30 years ago, one of the things that the fossil fuels industry did was try and shift more of the responsibility for climate, like fixing the climate, to personal individuals as opposed to companies and governments. Right? And that is a very, very nasty thing to do. And they've been super effective at it. Because, ultimately, if, Walmart, who I'm not really going to pick on because I think Walmart actually for a big company is trying to do certain things really right. But for one little change that a Walmart does, it's more than like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yeah, every individual people.
Right. So they're very gifted at shifting narratives. And in this case, it's shifting the narrative to personal responsibility. And again, it's really important. And I think education's important. And I think it's just as important from an impact perspective as creating a market perspective. Because in a lot of ways, it's the market forces that will then create bigger impact.
So how impactful are consumers in driving this in driving, the green and sustainable pieces for companies to begin shifting?
They can be big. They can be big depending on the company. I crush on Patagonia. It's a Patagonia sticker, right?
Yeah.
So like there are certain billion-dollar companies that are built around having a really, really strong point of view on sustainability and climate. Now, when you have that kind of point of view, maybe it's important.
Yeah.
Right. And that's part of marketing too.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it's much preferable to understand authentically who you are as a company,
right,
who you're talking to, and then staying with that.
Right. Which is the hard part sometimes.
It can be, particularly if you're a public company.
Yeah.
But Patagonia is private. So and that's a conscious decision that they've made.
Mm-hmm.
But, another company that's awesome is Allbirds, and they very much lead on sustainability. But they got in a tricky situation when they went public, and the street is looking for profit after profit after profit, and they weren't able to grow to the extent that they had been, what Wall Street expected.
Yeah.
And it can cause them, they never have slipped from their sustainability, but what it's caused them to do is diffuse away from their sort of core competency in terms of the shoes. And then they got diffused, and then things got a little sideways in quality and stuff like that. So it's tricky, but to answer the question directly, you can absolutely create a great consumer company, and it's been done countless times.
I always think of Ben and Jerry's.
Yes.
Because you talk about disruptive.
Yeah.
They love making people uncomfortable in like what they do, right? And like this is their direction, their causes. They're very open about their causes, and in the justice system, So I look at that brand and I say, okay, well, that's a huge brand. They can take a more disruptive stand. As a small business, when you are trying to really find your niche, and it's very hard to say no to work because you don't know when the next work is coming.
Yeah.
How do you position yourself to be niched into green or sustainable or purpose driven while you're also taking on jobs that don't necessarily fill in or fit within that narrative, but your business still has to survive? So how do you kind of straddle that?
Yeah, it depends on the business. It depends on your tolerance for risk. It depends on your business plan. But what I would say is that if you have, as a company, if you have the luxury of a little bit of runway, one of the most important things for any company to do, particularly when you're smaller, is differentiate. And the way you differentiate is have a very clear point of view. And then you will find your people. You will find the people that are going to be attracted to that point of view. So it may take some time to get there, which is why I mentioned the runway.
Yes.
But if you have that firm point of view and you stick to it and you make it clear that's who you are, your people, and you proactively market,
right?
Your people will find you. And then hopefully the flywheel starts. You do some great
I feel
work,
like I should drop the tagline I dropped last time.
What was it?
The whole, you put out your vibe, you find your tribe.
There you go.
And it's true, right?
Yeah.
It's like when you really kind of be true to yourself and true to other people, like those same people are going to come be attracted to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a much more interesting way of saying be authentic.
Yeah. And I think that's what you do with your brand. Like there have been projects that I will share with you and you're like, that's just not a fit, right? And I think that confidence and that experience is so valuable. So who are the companies that come to you? How long did it take you to attract the right people? Like how many no's did it take to get to your crew, essentially?
Yeah. So I had the luxury of doing this kind of work as not all of my work in my previous companies. So, I've been in climate for quite a while. I have a pretty good network in climate. Before we were talking about how do you know someone's authentic? I just know.
Yeah.
Right. So when Megan and I were talking about how do we position ourselves, we're just very upfront about it. We're very upfront about who we are and what we look to do. And then one of the many, many amazing things about Boston in general is there is a very vibrant climate tech scene. So there are all kinds of companies being spun out of places like MIT, where they're taking those big brains and they're applying them to maybe the biggest problem we have which is how to protect our planet.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of it is technology, really crazy technology. And they need help being able to explain who they are and why that matters. And Megan and I are uniquely equipped to help with that because we have a lot of experience with this, because we're able to go deep on the technology, but then we're able to translate. We're able to say yes, no, 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 yes. And then turn it into something that will resonate for whatever audience they're trying to reach. Which we haven't talked yet about audience, but in many ways, I think that's the most important part of marketing, and people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's dig in.
Let's get into
who is the audience for this space, and is it changing and growing now than it was 5 years ago?
So it's company and organization specific.
Okay.
Right. So if you are a startup out of MIT and you're making some sort of AI-powered robot, your audience is likely who would fund you, who would partner with you, who will work with you.
Okay.
You're not going to be really concerned about talking to the broad general audience. So you could have a certain level of sophistication with your story, because you know that the people you're talking to are a pretty small subset, right? Say you're a nonprofit, and you're a nonprofit that is maybe involved in legal work, right? So you're defending against some of the stuff that the Trump administration is defending to do, right? So who's your audience? Your audience is going to be your donor base. You want to get them excited about the fact that their $25 is going to help do this thing. Your audience is also likely going to be younger people, because historically what happens is when people start supporting nonprofits in a more meaningful way, it's because they have more money, right? But you want to try and engage with younger people who in many ways are just as fired up about what's happening. They got 3 kids under 5.
There's no money there.
And they're both working and they don't have any time whatsoever, right? So maybe that's part of your audience too. And then you have to start thinking about platform for that audience. And that platform, whether it's Instagram or whatever you decide to do, is going to probably be different than the retired 70-year-old who's been supporting you for 10 years. Right. So it really, there's no broad answer on audience. And then a lot of times when I'm talking to somebody for the first time in terms of potentially working together, it's one of my first questions. I'd be surprised how many people don't have a good answer.
Well, I was just talking with a nonprofit the other day, and I was like, who are your donors? And the answer was anyone that is willing to give money. I was like, well, $1 or $100,000. What is that message? Because it's finding someone that can donate $100,000 is very different.
And that the message resonates with them, right? That's half the battle.
Yeah, they definitely need to dig in a little bit more.
Yeah, I know.
A little more segmentation.
A little bit.
Yeah.
So as a kind of a climate-focused brand business, how do you stay on top of trends and news that's happening and the skill that it takes to kind of bring that to the forefront? Because I feel like it's changing all the time. There's a lot of fear mongering. There's a lot of fake news on it. Yeah. So how do you stay in this space?
Yeah. So it's a great question.
Thanks.
Great question. I'll give you that one. Good job.
I think the first thing is don't get overwhelmed. There's a long view here, right? There's a long view. And what's happening right now is horrible. There's no way around it. But it's going to get better, right? So don't get caught in the day-to-day of everything that's happening. That's the day-to-day really matters. Right? So at a high level, what I would say is if you're thinking about climate stuff and you're thinking about it from a business perspective, it's important to have a fundamental understanding of policy. Because policy government is something that is very intertwined with climate, particularly on the sort of business to business end. A little less important for consumer, but still important. Then I would say, try not to rely on too much social media for your stuff, because that stuff is super angsty.
Yeah, the whole world's on fire.
The whole world's on fire, right? So find some people that you really respect, follow them, we're looking at them almost from like, how are they communicating this stuff on social perspective? It's not even as much what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson is this amazing, amazing person who's written a couple of different books.
Okay.
And she's an ocean biologist.
Mm-hmm.
And she does a wonderful job of explaining sort of like what's happening in a way that has a lot of urgency, but is also relatively measured.
Mm.
Then it's also important to like read a few different publications. I read the Times daily from a climate perspective. The Washington Post actually has really good climate coverage. Yeah. So I try and give that a read. And our hometown paper, The Globe, does a really nice job too. And I think it's important to understand sort of what's happening here from a climate perspective, particularly because states like Massachusetts are very much sort of the front of the resistance from a policy perspective.
Right.
And there's a tremendous amount of innovation happening here with regards to these climate tech startups that we're talking about.
And we experience like all 4 seasons in the month of April.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
we no longer have spring.
No, we don't.
Like,
we don't. It's just one big.
It's just like right there.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's
so how important do you think it is moving forward that companies adopt these green policies to move forward? Like, do you think it's something imperative that they're going to need to survive against their competitors that are doing it? Like, how important do you think it is?
Yeah. So the first thing, I'll come back to that word that is unfortunately overused, but really relevant, authenticity. Mm-hmm. No one should feel like they should become a climate-facing company if they're not authentically a climate-facing company.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
So don't pose, right? That's greenwashing, that's crap. Mm-hmm. So that said, it comes down to sort of a company's like analysis of like what the world's going to look like from a business perspective. Right. You know, one of the things, and I don't want to turn this into a political conversation, but one of the things that's not talked about enough with regards to what's happening right now with the current administration, with regards to the tariffs and sort of the stuff that's happening around climate, is it is positioning the U.S. in a less of a leadership role than we are right now, in a market that's going to grow. Clean energy is going to grow. It doesn't matter how many little things you put into it. It is a global market, and it is a global race. And China right now is on the verge of kicking our butt, and we're empowering them to do it by shutting them out, shutting everyone else out, so they can then market to the rest of the world with their products and defunding research on our end. So I'm mentioning that to say there is an important like visibility a company needs to have with looking at the future and seeing what they think is going to be happening in the future, and then betting their business on it one way or the other. And I think that's a little bit more B2B, and I know we're a little more focused here on consumer. With consumer, I think it is fairly easy to turn the spigot on if it's authentically what you're trying to do as a company.
Right.
And you can do that by looking at your own supply chain, figuring out the products that you want, and then it gives you that point of differentiation.
Yeah.
Right?
I also want to go back to when you had said building habits and habit stacking.
Yeah.
You know what habit stacking is? I just learned this.
Actually.
Okay, it's like this cool little trendy word of like, what's a good example? So next to your toothbrush, you were going to brush your teeth every morning, right? You don't need to teach yourself that, but maybe before you go to bed, you put your vitamin right next to your toothbrush.
I do
so,
I do that
okay,
in the mornings because I always forget to take my medication.
So great. So that's already, so that's already a habit, right? So maybe the next habit that you're going to do is like, I'm going to do like 15 push-ups before I even like get dressed or whatever, right? Like then
in the bathroom after I take my medication.
Yes. Yeah. You're just going to keep stacking it. Yeah. You're just going to keep stacking it. Right. So going back to like the green part of like habit stacking is like, I love online shopping. I hate going into stores, but I had to give up. I said for an entire year, I am not going to buy anything new unless like it is imperative. Like we need new socks, underwear, like whatever. But every other clothing choice is going to be like thrifted. And I started digging into all of the different companies that offer thrifted and whatever, that kind of like clothing share. And then I got hooked on it. And this is before influencers got into it. And they were like, thrifting's really cool. Vintage is like the way to go.
Yeah.
But now that I'm hooked on it, it's a habit, and then it keeps stacking more and more. But you start seeing these other larger fast fashion companies that realize people are not into fast fashion anymore because it's terrible for the environment. Right. And now all of a sudden they have like a consignment page on their website or a box in their stores for like, donate the clothes that you just bought last week so that you don't feel guilty buying the next set of clothes in the store, right? So like, how does that, from a consumer standpoint, how can they be more aware of like what these companies are doing to make them feel validated in continually purchasing things that aren't ethically made or sustainable?
It's hard. They're tricky, right?
They're so tricky.
They're very sneaky. These companies are very sneaky, and they see something happening, and then they want to take advantage of it and sort of trick you. So, I mean, the only answer is do your homework, which is really like lame that you have to do that. You can't trust companies.
No.
Another way to approach it is maybe like if you're really looking at like thrifting as a thing, stay local. Like I know you don't like to go online. You only like to do online, but like there's thrift stores everywhere now.
I know. Yeah, they're a thing.
So just maybe try and do that a little bit more in this example. But it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard. And then the third way I would say is just maybe try and gravitate towards brands that you know are authentically committed to sustainability. So you don't have to like
continually
go through like our banking conversation before, as opposed to trying to figure out which banks are and aren't. It's like if it's a core value, it's a front and center. Like you make that one decision, and then you can make every decision with that brand, knowing I like what they stand for.
Yeah. So how do companies find you, work with you, thrive with the GreenStory?
Well, GreenStoryCollective.com is our website, and we're on LinkedIn. We actually use LinkedIn pretty rigorously, though we're not as good with our like company one, mostly because Megan and I had a pretty good personal following. And I don't know if you experienced this with your own LinkedIn, but
personal is the way to go. Yeah. The business is there, but like people want to engage with.
Exactly. Yeah. So
it goes back to being authentic, right?
Exactly.
People want authentic people.
Exactly. Yeah.
Image.
Yeah. So, Mike Farber, I'm in Cambridge. Megan Mayu Bergman, she's up in Chatsworth, Vermont.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I'm so excited to like follow. You have your own kind of podcast starting too, or the LinkedIn lives, if you will, that share little nuggets for everybody to kind of learn and adapt and kind of incorporate into their brands too.
Yeah, those have been fun. We're thinking of them as little video conversations, and they're between 3 to 5 minutes, and we do one of a couple things. Megan and I either just throw a topic back and forth, or we have a guest on. So we had, our first guest was the CEO of an organization called 1% for the Planet.
I know them because we're working with them on the Eco Bingo.
Nice. Oh. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Well, you might want to become a member company. It's a very easy way to. We're member companies. I don't know if you know their model. I'll explain it for the audience. But basically, when Megan and I started GreenStory, we wanted a way to sort of like walk the talk from a business perspective, but like we don't have an accountant. Actually, technically, we have an accountant. Yeah, it is tax day, but that's why I was a little late.
That's okay. Totally fine.
But what 1% does is basically you certify your income with them, and then 1% of the revenue you make goes to 1%, and you get to pick a series of grassroots environmental organizations that money is distributed directly to.
Okay,
which is amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
It's super simple from a small business perspective, and then that like you're making an impact with regards to the money that you're able to generate as a company.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. I think that's like one of the best parts about owning a company is being able to say like, what is our value? We don't have 50 people in a boardroom that we all have to take into account. Like, what is everybody's value? It's like, what is our values? And then how do we impact change within our own community or whatnot? So that's fantastic. I can't thank you enough for being on the show and sharing. Seriously. And we could talk about this like for hours. So
it's good fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you.